Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. We appreciate you listening this Sunday. We're always here talking about real estate, and today we're going to take it a little farther. We're bringing in Congressman Ted Poe. He's actually calling in today into the show. He's been elected to the U.S. House of Representatives back in 2004. He represents the 2nd Congressional District of Texas, and Congressman Poe brings his no-nonsense style to Washington. He's been a friend of the real estate industry, and when we go for our Hill visits, he's one of the congressmen that we like to meet with. And we brought him on the show today to talk to you about a couple of things. One of the issues, we want to talk a little bit about border security and human trafficking, some of the things going on. And one of the reasons that we're talking a little bit about human trafficking is because the Texas Association of Realtors has a program for realtors to go through. It's called the Texas Realtors Leadership Program. And I've been through it. I have friends that are going through it now. And they always pick a service project and try to get the word out about things and work on focus on some type of service project. And this year they're talking about human trafficking and trying to raise funds and help with that. And so I brought in Congressman Poe to talk a little bit about that and also border security. So we appreciate you calling into the show today.
Well, it's great to talk to you, Shannon.
So I know that you have been to the border many times. You're a big constitutionalist, and really, what you're doing, speaking out about what's happening with border security in Texas is a great thing. Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing lately.
As far as the border goes, there are portions of the border, talking about the Texas-Mexico border, that are more secure than they have been in the past. But there are other areas that are as bad or worse than they've been in the past. Depends on the area. Several 900-mile border with Mexico. And what is occurring is that people are coming into the United States without permission because the word is out that if you get in the United States, that you won't be deported if you get here illegally. That is the reason we have so many people coming. But there are portions of the border that are better than in the past. And the reason for that is the state of Texas, that through the governor's office, is using state resources to secure portions of the borders, especially down between McAllen and Laredo and that sector. They're using all local law enforcement. So we're getting everybody across, and they're coming from, really, they're not all coming from just Mexico. They're coming from really all over the world, and we're getting people who come in for the U.S. to...
So they're coming from all over the world, but coming that way, coming through Mexico to get here.
Because the word's out, if you get into Mexico, and Mexico has a tremendous problem being just like us, having two ocean borders. If you get into Mexico, you can get into Texas, into the United States, and so that's the route that people are coming. And you have, like I said, people from all over the world coming that route.
Are the residents down there feeling any safer? I mean, are they feeling better about things? Because I know that Texas has tried to put more law enforcement in place and put some initiatives in place. Are the residents feeling any better about it? In certain areas,
yes, and in certain areas, no. Okay. People are very concerned about people who enter the United States, and the people affected the most are the people who in Texas who live on the border, because that's where people cross in.
Right.
And there have been some concern, and they've expressed that concern to local law enforcement as well. Some law enforcement's overwhelmed because when a person comes in the United States illegally, that's a federal problem, but if that person commits a crime, then it's a local problem. And the cooperation, in my opinion, between the feds and the local folks needs to improve a great deal.
So is anything being done in Congress to try to stop illegal immigrants from coming in and just not being deported and being able to, use all of our resources without going to work, paying taxes?
Yes, the Mike McCall, Chairman McCall of Homeland Security, has filed legislation. I filed legislation that gives more resources to not just the federal authorities, but local authorities as well to secure the border. We need to change the model of border security. and very quickly, our model is try to catch as many people that come in the U.S. illegally and send as many back as possible legally. Mm-hmm. That's not a good model. The model should be we should have border security on the border. We should have law enforcement, whatever it takes, the National Guard on the border so that people don't come into the United States to begin with. Because once they come into the United States, then they have to go through a magistrate, an immigration judge, etc. Mm-hmm. And down the road, the federal government has to change its concept of what border security is. Don't let them cross to begin with, no matter who it is. Come in the United States legally or don't come.
Do you think that will be federal officials or local law enforcement to be able to do something like that and maintain it?
Federal officials need to do it first. The state of Texas and its border security plan, starting all the way back to Governor Perry, is actually on the border. They're in the river or right on the shoreline. They have boats patrolling up and down the Rio Grande River to prevent people crossing into the United States. You can do the same thing on the shoreline. Federal government, they're backed off the border. Therefore, if people come in, they're already here. Then what do you do with the ones that you capture? So it's the federal government's responsibility to change this model.
Mm-hmm. Now, how much human trafficking is coming through the border? Do you have any statistics on that?
I can't give you statistics. Can you say the word? Numbers that I would say are accurate because we're not sure. We only know anecdotal. The same people that are bringing drugs in the United States are bringing primarily young women into the U.S. For human sex trafficking. So it's the same groups of individuals. There are some lone individuals, but primarily it's the drug cartels that are bringing human trafficking in. They use the same route, they use the same philosophy, and the numbers are growing because, unfortunately, the demand is growing in the U.S. Houston, Texas, unfortunately, is one of the hubs in the whole country for human trafficking, minor sex trafficking.
Yes,
people are brought to Houston and farmed out, sold throughout the United States.
Is there any legislation that's passed or that you think will be passed in the next session regarding human trafficking?
Well, we passed really massive legislation this year, and it's great legislation that will deal with this problem. It was bipartisan. Myself and Carolyn Maloney, New York Democrat, worked on legislation, and it does three things. And it passed the House unanimously with just 3 people voting no, and then passed the Senate, and then the President has signed it. We worked on it with the Senate. John Cornyn was the primary author in the Senate.
Okay.
It does three things. It punishes the trafficker, and it also punishes the demand, the consumer, the person that actually buys the kids and uses them. And in the past, these individuals have gotten away with this crime. But it also treats the victims of crime as victims of crime and not as criminals. And just one statistic, the human sex trafficking in the United States, about 20% of it, the young girls come from foreign countries, and then about 80% is domestic. So this bill applies to both of those. 80% of the people that are being trafficked in the U.S. are from America. And that's, I think, an alarming
unbelievable.
Statistic.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. Wow. All right, we just have a couple minutes. Let's talk a little bit about patent trolls. I know for the real estate industry, we've had a lot of real estate brokerages that have had issues with patent trolls, and the real estate community, I know NAR has really been behind stopping patent trolls. I know that you are very familiar with patent trolls in other regards outside of real estate. Can you speak about that?
Yes, the Congress is working to solve the patent troll individuals. What that is, these are people that, in my opinion, they're not concerned about anything except making money and trying to find some allegation that a person has. There's a patent violation, and rather than go to court, cost too much, the individual settles with the patent trolls. That's what we commonly call patent trolls up here in Congress. And bona fide lawsuits, great. Those things need to go forward. They need to go through the patent courts. But those that are just drive-by lawsuits against any industry, whether it's real estate or anybody else, those patent trolls, we have to provide legislation to prevent that from occurring. Those are just lawsuits for the only purpose of trying to get somebody to settle out of court, either on a legitimate or really not a legitimate case, and to save the cost of having to go to court to fight that lawsuit.
So I know the example that we were talking about earlier had to do with the ADA. Can you tell the consumers about that example, just so they get a clear picture of what we're talking about? That these are kind of frivolous things that these people haven't even experienced what they're suing about.
Sure. What that is, Shannon, I just filed this legislation this week. In fact, businesses, I think for the most part, try to comply with the ADA.
Right.
But there are people out there who sue businesses because there is they perceive a violation, and it's not like it's a big violation. It's like that the rail is not painted the correct color, or there is the rail that's on the outside is off by half an inch, and some of these just ludicrous examples. And they find these mistakes. They aren't even consumers, customers of the business. They're out of state. They use Google Maps, Google satellites. They find a perceived violation of the ADA, and then they file a lawsuit. And you got some of these individuals, these plaintiffs, who are filing 30, 40, 50, 60 lawsuits throughout the country. The business is unaware of the mistake, and then they get a demand letter from a lawyer, settle or we're taking you to court. And the individual, the business, doesn't even know that they are in violation, and they settle because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So to prevent those frivolous drive-by lawsuits from occurring, this legislation says you got to put a person on notice of the mistake of ADA, and they have 120 days to fix the mistake. Because if the goal is to make sure that the disabled can get in a business as they're supposed to by law, then give the business time to fix the problem before the lawsuit can actually go into court, and that's what this does.
Right. I know that, and it is expensive. I know in the real estate industry, the Texas Association of Realtors has basically put out a call to brokerages and said, if you get a demand letter from a company, basically a patent troll kind of company, to let them know, and they will help you fight it, because it is so expensive to fight. Most people are settling, and instead of settling, they want to fight it. One of the things that I've heard, though, is that they're having to fight every time instead of having some kind of ruling saying, this, to keep this from happening again and again and again with real estate brokerages. They're having to keep refighting it every time instead of getting like a ruling that prevents this from continuing each time. So it would be nice if something would, if they could get something in place, set a precedent so that it would stop, instead of brokerages and the Texas Association of Realtors having to continually fight this over and over and over again, the same things.
Well, the answer is on the end, where the courts need the authority to sanction lawyers that are not scrupulous and for these frivolous lawsuits. And so that comes on the back end to prevent these from happening. If they're sanctioned by the courts, then that'd be one way, I think, that these lawsuits would stop. Yeah.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate you calling in today and giving us a few minutes of your time to talk about some important issues with human trafficking. And, we really appreciate the hard work that you're doing, and appreciate you actually going to the border and taking a look and, and being a part of the answer, finding an answer down there. So we hope that the problems with human trafficking certainly get better, at least reduced, because we know Houston is one of the number one hotspots for human trafficking.
Thank you, Shannon. Good to talk to you.
All right, we'll be right back here on Houston Real Estate Radio.
People often find themselves in need of storage and moving, but don't want the hassle and stress. Sound familiar? Well, at Zippy Shell, we make storage and moving easy. Zippy Shell will deliver a storage container to your home or business. You load it at your leisure, and we'll take it to one of our safe, convenient storage facilities, or ship it to your final destination. We treat your stuff like it's our stuff, because we understand you're not just giving us your belongings, you're giving us your trust. Zippy Shell. Storage and moving that makes life simple.